An army that had erased cities is riding straight toward a narrow valley, and if nobody stops them, Egypt is next. Waiting behind walls won't work. Surrender won't be accepted, and one wrong move means the end of an entire regime. So how did a cavalry force built from enslaved recruits set a trap for the most feared war machine on earth? To understand the collision, start with the feeling of the year. Dispatches arriving like blows. Outposts in Syria fall, roads go quiet, and every rumor moves faster than any army. In Cairo, the question isn't pride, it's survival. Do you wait, or do you ride out to meet the storm? And that choice is about to split the court. The enemy isn't a single tribe, it's a method. Mongol warfare, as historians like David Morgan and Peter Jackson emphasize, runs on speed, scouting, and coordinated movement. Columns that appear, surround, and pursue until resistance collapses. Their reputation is a weapon all by itself. But reputations only last until someone learns the pattern. So what pattern did Cairo see? 2 years earlier, Baghdad fell, an event chroniclers treated as a rupture, and modern scholarship treats as a strategic shockwave. Administrative centers broke, alliances snapped, and Syria's rulers began calculating which surrender might keep them alive. The Mongols didn't just win battles, they rewired decisions before battles even happened. And now that psychological pressure is squeezing toward Egypt's border. But Egypt's defenders are not a feudal levy and not a tribal confederation. They're Mamluks, enslaved youths purchased from the Steppe and the Caucasus, converted, trained, and turned into a professional cavalry elite. It's a brutal paradox, bondage converted into a state technology. The question is whether that engineered discipline can stand up to the fastest operational system on Earth. In this system, loyalty is built, less to a family name, more to a regiment and a patron. You learn the bow until your fingers split, the horse until it feels like another limb, and unit discipline until it's reflex. It's not romantic and it's not freedom. It's a pipeline that produces control under pressure, and pressure is exactly what's coming down the road from Syria. At the center is Sultan Quṭuz, sturdy, controlled, and painfully aware that legitimacy is a battlefield too. His regime is young, the politics are sharp, and defeat wouldn't just lose land, it would erase the government that holds Egypt together. He needs a decision that looks like strength, not panic. But the most competent man beside him, Baybars, has his own ideas and his own ambition. Baybars is a field commander's kind of presence. Lean, quick, reading terrain the way others read text. He checks bowstrings, tests arrowheads, and watches riders like instruments that must hit on time. He isn't selling bravery, he's selling a plan. And that plan depends on doing something that sounds insane, leaving Egypt's natural defenses to fight forward in Palestine. Because if you stay behind the Sinai and the Nile, you're letting the Mongols choose the tempo. They can raid, probe, and force you to react until your system breaks. Quṭuz needs the opposite. A fight on ground he selects, at a time he controls, with intelligence feeding his decisions. And that means scouts, fast, quiet, relentless, become as important as lances. The scout messenger rides until his lips crack because information is life. He brings not heroic speeches but distances, water sources, and the direction of dust plumes. He marks where valleys narrow and where a cavalry mass can't spread out. In the Mamluk camp, those details land like weapons on the map, and one location begins to glow with possibility, if the Mongols can be made to enter it. Meanwhile, the Mongol commander in Syria is Kitbuqa, older, weathered, and very much a professional. He's holding territory that fell fast, and he's doing it with the tools Mongol armies trust most: scouts, mobility, and the threat of punishment for defiance. He doesn't need to be a villain to be dangerous. He just needs to be correct about what usually works. And what usually works is pursuit. There's also a structural twist in 1260. After the great Khan Munka dies, Hulagu pulls much of the main force eastward. Peter Jackson highlights this as the operational context that creates a rare window. Not a free win, not a weak opponent, but a moment when the Mongols in Syria are more exposed to a decisive battle. The Mamluks understand windows close fast, so they move like men racing a door. The march north feels like a night-long inhale. Leather creaks, armor plates click, and the only music is hooves and the occasional hiss of a whetstone. No one is celebrating the chance to fight. They're counting rations and watching the horizon. Quṭuz rides at the head to be seen because morale and legitimacy travel on the same road. And ahead, the land itself is waiting to be used. The chosen ground near Ayn Jalut isn't dramatic in the way people imagine battlefields. It's practical, a basin with a spring, green patches, and hills that pinch movement into lanes. For an army that wants space, it's a problem. For an army that wants control, it's a tool. Baybars studies it like a lock studies a key. But the lock only matters if the target walks into it. So the Mamluks prepare not just to fight, but to communicate inside the fight. Signals, reserve positioning, pre-arranged rally points, small decisions that keep a plan from dissolving into panic. The scout messenger points out folds in the ground where riders can vanish until the last moment. Quṭuz listens, then makes the kind of commitment leaders dread. He decides to force the battle here. And once that decision is made, there's no safe way back. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this kind of step-by-step history where battles are choices, not myths, hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot, and it tells me to keep making episodes that slow down the moment decisions become irreversible. Because in the next beat, the trap has to be sold, and the Mongols have to believe it. Kitbuqa's scouts report movement, Mamluk riders ahead, not hiding behind Egypt's barriers. That's unexpected, but not unbelievable. Boldness can be desperation. The Mongol standard rises, the horsehair banner a moving point of certainty in a shifting world. Kitbuqa's confidence isn't arrogance, it's experience. Opponents break when pressed. But this opponent is about to press back in a way he doesn't expect. Baybars takes forward elements and shows them just enough. An invitation, not a wall. A few ranks appear, loose enough to look catchable, disciplined enough not to look like a trap. Arrows begin to trade at distance, more message than massacre. We're here, we're moving, follow if you dare. The Mongols respond the way they have 100 times before. They lean into pursuit. And that lean is exactly what the valley wants. Feigned retreat is a shared language on the Eurasian battlefield. Mongols used it, and they taught the world to fear it. Now Baybars speaks that language back to them. He turns his horse, pulls his line away, and makes it look like the first crack. The key is timing. Too fast and it's obvious. Too slow and you're caught. Kitbuqa reads it as opportunity, because opportunity is what Mongol doctrine is built to seize. The battlefield begins to compress. What was open maneuver becomes lanes, and lanes become choke points. Dust hangs low, and the sound changes. Less wind, more impact. Tack snapping, shouted orders, the slap of arrows into shields and saddles. Kitbuqa pushes in, trying to keep momentum, because momentum is how you avoid being fixed in place. But the more he pushes, the more his formation becomes a single, crowded mass, exactly the shape a trap needs. Quṭuz is not in the front yet. He's holding the part most armies can't hold, restraint. Reserves wait behind folds of ground, hidden by trees and the curve of the basin. This is where engineered discipline matters, men staying still while the noise says, "Charge now." Quṭuz watches for the moment when the Mongols are committed deep enough that turning back costs them. And when that moment comes, he won't need a speech. He'll need a signal. Baybars' retreat tightens into the basin, and then, like a door closing, his line stiffens. Riders pivot in the saddle, bows come up, and the broken force suddenly looks organized again. Mongol horse archers try to widen, to regain space for their arcs, but the terrain refuses them. Kitbuqa's orders get shorter, sharper, because he can feel the fight changing shape. The question is whether he can change with it in time. This is the collision of systems the sources hint at, and modern historians explain. Mongol operational speed meets Mamluk preparation and terrain selection. Not miracle, mechanism. The Mongols are still lethal, still disciplined, still capable of sudden bursts of violence. But inside a funnel, speed becomes congestion, and congestion becomes vulnerability. Quṭuz waits one more heartbeat because committing too early is how traps fail. Then he moves. The signal goes out, fast, simple, unmistakable. Reserves pour in from concealment, not as a chaotic wave but as a shaped Uder, a controlled hit aimed at the Mongols' flanks. Suddenly Kitbuqa isn't chasing, he's being held. The Mongol standard dips, then rises again, fighting to stay visible in the dust. And for the first time in this campaign, the Mongols are not dictating the rhythm, they're answering it. Kitbuqa reacts like a professional. He tries to reform, to punch through, to regain operational depth. Orders snap down the line, and sub-commanders attempt to open space with aggressive pushes, but every push runs into the same problem: terrain and timing. The Mamluks aren't just fighting harder, they're fighting in a place designed to make Mongol solutions expensive. And when solutions get expensive, even great armies start making bargains with risk. Baybars keeps the pressure intelligent. He doesn't chase every rider. He targets cohesion, units, standards, and the spaces where orders travel. He reads faces and horse positions, looking for the moment when confidence becomes improvisation. The Mongol standard bearer becomes a visual anchor, the banner a promise that the formation still exists. But the tighter the fight gets, the harder it is to keep that promise true. And the next break won't be subtle. Quṭuz rides closer now, not to play hero, but to keep the plan from fraying. In battles like this, the commander is a communications node. His presence stabilizes decisions. He pushes fresh men where the line softens and restrains those who want to overrun into chaos. The Mamluk system, built on drilled obedience, finally shows what it was designed for: coordinated violence under stress. But Kitbuqa still has one advantage left: refusal to yield. Medieval chroniclers disagree on numbers, and modern historians warn us not to treat battlefield math like a ledger. What matters is shape: a Mongol force committed into a basin, pressed from multiple directions, losing the room it needs to turn movement into victory. The fight becomes less about distance and more about seconds. Who can reorient first? Who can keep units intact? And in those seconds, reputation stops being armor. Kitbuqa tries to rally around the core, and the banner stays near him, because symbols matter when the world is dissolving. His face is set, not panicked. He's looking for the seam in the Mamluk line. But the seam isn't there, because Quṭuz and Baybars built the engagement around reserves and restraint. The Mongols' usual escape, turn the fight into a chase, doesn't open. And when a chase doesn't open, the battlefield turns into a cage. At some point, every army discovers the difference between can't lose and might lose. The Mongols had built a political strategy on inevitability, cities surrendering because resistance looked pointless. Now, inside this valley, inevitability starts to crack. Not because the Mongols forget how to fight, but because their opponent has forced a different kind of fight. And once that crack appears, it spreads faster than fear ever did. The decisive moment comes as the Mongol center is fixed and the flanks are pressured hard enough that command becomes physical, shoving, pointing, hauling men into place. Kitbuqa's attempts to reassert tempo meet a wall of disciplined rotation. Fresh Mamluks stepping in as others pull back, keeping the line alive. Baybars' forward elements stop being bait and become the blade. And somewhere in the dust, the battle's outcome stops being a possibility and becomes a direction. Arabic sources preserve the drama of Kitbuqa's end, and the broad consensus is clear: the Mongol commander is killed and his force breaks. We don't need to linger on the mechanics of death to understand the mechanism of defeat. Leadership loss inside a compressed battlefield doesn't just remove orders, it removes certainty. The standard's meaning changes in an instant, from hold to where do we go? And that question is poison in a funnel. When the Mongol line breaks, it doesn't look like a movie rout, more like a machine losing synchronization. Small groups peel away, then larger ones, each trying to find open ground where their style of fighting works again. The Mamluks don't simply chase, they pursue selectively, trying to prevent the enemy from reforming. Baybars' eyes are already past the battlefield, thinking in roads and passes. Because victory only matters if you can hold what it buys you. This is why historians frame Ayn Jalut as decisive. It's a clear battlefield defeat that punctures the aura, even if the Mongols remain strategically dangerous. The Near East had been living under a story. Resistance is futile. Now there's proof of a method: intelligence, chosen terrain, disciplined reserves, and the nerve to force contact. But proof creates new problems too. Once you demonstrate you can win, you also invite the enemy to return with a lesson learned. Quṭuz doesn't treat the field like a stage for celebration. He treats it like a temporary opening in a war that isn't over. Orders go out immediately: secure roads, occupy key towns, reassert control over Syria before panic returns. The scout messenger rides again. Same dust, same urgency. Only now the message is different. It's not, "They're coming." It's, "Move now, before the window closes." And windows always close. Baybars walks the edge of the basin, studying debris like evidence. A snapped bow, a dropped quiver, a hoofprint pattern that shows where the Mongols tried to turn and couldn't. This is the unglamorous core of command. You don't just win, you diagnose. Because the Mongols will diagnose too, and next time they'll avoid your strengths if you let them. Baybars' competence is almost cold, and that coldness is part of why the Mamluks survive. But survival has a price inside their own politics. Because Quṭuz needed this victory for legitimacy, and Baybars knows exactly what his role was in making it happen. Their cooperation is real, but it's not warm. In a regime built from military patronage, battlefield credit can turn into political leverage overnight. The army rides north to consolidate Syria, but inside the camp another campaign is already forming, one made of whispers and promises, and the next turning point won't involve Mongols at all. Still, on the strategic map, the effect is immediate. Mamluk garrisons move into Syrian fortresses, roads are patrolled, and local rulers recalibrate. Because now there is a power that can protect, not just punish. Cairo becomes the center of gravity in the eastern Mediterranean, a role the Mamluks will defend for generations. But don't mistake this for peace. The Mongols are not gone. They're simply forced to treat the Mamluks as a serious opponent. And that changes the next decades of war. It's tempting to tell Ayn Jalut as a miracle story, but the more unsettling truth is that it's repeatable. The Mamluks didn't win because the enemy forgot how to fight. They won because they designed a situation where Mongol strengths cost more than they paid. Terrain became a weapon, intelligence became a shield, and discipline became the engine that kept the plan intact. That's why the battle echoes in later Arabic historiography, and why modern historians keep returning to it as a case study, but the most haunting part is what it says about invincibility. Invincibility is often a story told by survivors, pattern recognition turned into prophecy. The Mongols had earned their reputation through method, not magic, and method can be studied. The Mamluks, built by an institution that turned coerced recruits into professionals, were uniquely suited to study it and answer it in the same tactical language. That doesn't make them morally pure, it makes them effective. And effectiveness, in 1260, is what kept Egypt from becoming the next name in a list of ruins. But the frontier will demand payment again, because after 1260, the Mongol-Mamluk conflict doesn't end. It becomes a long contest of raids, campaigns, diplomacy, and adaptation. Each side learns, each side hardens its frontier, and each side searches for the next moment when the other is stretched by distance, politics, or succession. Ayn Jalut is the first decisive stop, not the last clash. The real legacy is that the Mongols can be stopped, and that knowledge reshapes every negotiation and every march that follows. And it all started with one decision: fight on chosen ground. So when you picture the battle, don't picture a single heroic charge. Picture a system: scouts measuring distance, commanders hoarding reserves, riders executing a feigned retreat with perfect timing, and a valley turning mobility into congestion. Picture Kitbuqa, competent and trapped by a battlefield that refuses to open. Picture Quṭuz, holding nerve long enough to commit at the right second. And picture Baybars, speaking the enemy's tactical language fluently enough to lure them into the sentence's final word. Because that's what Ayn Jalut was: grammar, not myth. And there's one last uncomfortable layer: The army that delivered this defense was built from human ownership. The Mamluk system did not erase violence, it organized it. It produced elite soldiers whose identity was forged through training, patronage, and controlled force. Then it turned those soldiers into rulers. That's part of why the victory mattered. It wasn't just a battlefield event. It was a legitimacy engine for a new order in Cairo. But legitimacy is hungry, and it never stops eating. The same machinery that saves a state can also consume it from within. In the end, Ayn Jalut doesn't prove that one side was destined to win. It proves that war machines are not immortal. They're conditional. Change the terrain, change the information flow, change the timing, and even the most terrifying system can be forced into a fight it didn't choose. That lesson outlived the men who fought there, and it echoed across the eastern Mediterranean for centuries. And if you want a single image to hold on to, make it this: dust on the horizon and a valley that says quietly, "Not here." If this episode helped you see how invincible can be dismantled by planning and discipline, tell me what moment hit you hardest: scouts, terrain, the feigned retreat, or the reserves. And if you want more episodes like this, comment, "We stopped them," below. I read every single comment, and it genuinely helps decide what we cover next.